Okay, how to make a solar infinity lantern. And it's kind of easy, it's neat, and it's cheap. So I went to the dollar store and picked up a couple of crappy little lanterns. They're not all the best, but you can probably find better ones if you really want. But I practiced on these guys first. That's a single light with a little reflector on the bottom. It's kind of neat, but probably won't do quite as well as if you had something that was a little bit smaller. No big deal about it. I also picked up a round one. I doubt it's going to work, but I figured I'd try it. I just kind of slide out a piece of plastic. Looks like a cup with no bottom. At least this one does. That one you're probably going to have to push on the sides a little bit to slide it out. And that's about it. And next is how to get the film inside. Okay, so you're going to need some Mylar, well, basically mirror film, to make your two-way mirror. Measure your cube or whatever it happens to be. These are plastic. Okay, most of them are. They're really cheap ones. And measure your film and make it, wide as you need to. A little extra, better. I made mine a little bit too wide. Clean your mat really well, because if you put dents in the stuff, it's not coming out. Take your razor knife and your ruler and just cut a straight edge. I cut mine to width. You're going to need to make some kind of square grid. Just makes life easier. So I'm presuming my cardboard was square, which it was, and I'm just measuring over so I don't have to cut to the edge of the cardboard, and making myself a kind of a square grid system so I can make life easier for myself. I thought I would cut your blocks just slightly smaller than you need, okay, because little daylight's not going to make much difference. Too big means you're taking them out just like you're going to see me do. So I made the grid for the bottom and the sides, because the sides were a bit longer. Everything is square, and just kind of recheck your measurements. Hold your film up to the square edges. That part's not too bad. Hold it down, take your razor knife and just cut. And just keep cutting. And like I said, if you measured correctly, you'd have a little less troubles, especially after you take the film off. Okay, so you're going to need some tape. You put it on the corners. I suggest you wouldn't use packing tape, and that's all I had kicking around. Kind of big and sticky, so you put it on both sides and the corners, and you pull. Takes a little bit of practice to get it right, but eventually it comes off. Okay, and that's the side that goes towards your plastic. Peel them all off. Make sure that the sticky side stays up, because you don't want any dirt and stuff on it. Not a great idea. Although you're never going to get this stuff 100% flat. Okay, it's going to look not too bad, but there's going to be a few bubbles and stuff. And it's simply because you're working with something really small, and the stuff wasn't designed to do that. Clean your box with some kind of window cleaner. Okay, get all the grease off. Okay, you can use soapy water if you want, but I found window cleaner works just as well. And if it's glass, I wouldn't be running my fingers around there unless you like stitches. Run it under hot water. My hands are kind of impervious to hot water now. And just make sure it's clean. Make sure your hands are clean too. Well, at least you haven't done an oil change or something. And you don't have to dry your box off. It's just a waste of time. What you're going to need is a soapy solution. a couple of drops of soap in a bottle of water. Just make sure that it's unscented, dish soap or baby shampoo, and spray both sides. Make sure you get enough soap that it kind of looks soapy. Okay, otherwise you can't push the bubbles out as well. And don't be worried about putting too much on. More is better in this particular case. And like I said, if you measured right, you wouldn't have to be messing around like I'm about to do. But it'll all work out. And the knife I'm going to be using is just a cheap, soft dollar store thing instead of a squeegee because I couldn't find one. If you're going to use a credit card, I'd suggest you kind of wrap it up, or if you really start to push stuff out, it's going to scratch. And you just continue around. Take you a while, but it'll eventually all work out. You push all the bubbles and stuff out. And you can actually push bubbles out a day later. They'll still move. Now, as you'll see, when I get kind of slowed down a bit, that it's going to look nice and shiny, but as I tilt it, it's going to not look so good. That's pretty typical, but you can get a lot more of that out just by, pushing things around. And hopefully not pushing your Mylar right off plastic. Okay. Looks pretty flat, but as I tilt it, not so good. Now, next is putting it together. Okay, so now it's to turn it into a infinity solar lantern. Slide everything back together again, just like you took it apart. The bottom of this one has a reflector in it. It's kind of neat, makes it a little bit brighter, but they are big, so they tend to get in the road, as you'll see in a second. But they work. We'll turn it on. And put it together. Sometimes they're not all that cooperative, but they do go back together again. Here we go. Now the round one I always figured wasn't going to work, so I didn't even bother showing you how the Mylar went on, but it goes on the same way. Soap and water, some cursing and swearing, and eventually you get it without bubbles. The light's pretty unremarkable and not very bright, so I'm just going to put a light tube on it. It's a piece of plastic with water in it, and a little plug so you don't get water all over your table. Kind of amplifies the light. And we'll screw that together. I'll go turn some lights off. And here you have an infinity lantern. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. I'm not as impressed as the glass tea lantern ones. I have another video on that one if you want to look. But it works, and it's kind of neat, and it's certainly not very expensive. Now the round one I knew wasn't going to work because there's no angle of reflection. Kind of looks like E.T. or Ghost in there, I'm not sure. But it's pretty unremarkable. Okay, so if you can get one to work, hey, awesome, put a video up, but I don't think you will. So I wouldn't bother, you're just wasting your time. Hopefully you've liked this.